Hello everyone, my name is Evan Lane with Group 10, and today we're going to be doing our sixth video about more topic information. So in this presentation, we're going to be talking about a lot of the causes of like pollution from agricultural runoff. And basically there are several causes of agricultural water pollution, and many of them stem from like poor practices within the field. And here are some of the main causes that I found using my source of agricultural water pollution. So the first one is fertilizers, and then pesticides, manure, leaving crop residues, poor irrigation, and overgrazing. So for fertilizers, farmers often apply chemical fertilizers to their plants to help promote plant growth. These fertilizers contain nutrients like phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium, and oftentimes these are sprayed in excess of what the plants need. So they just soak into the soil at that point, and then when the soil gets washed away, when it rains or there's like irrigation, they work their way into watersheds, and they can cause a lot of problems like eutrophication, which is an overabundance of nutrients in the water, and that can cause oxygen depletions linked with like algal blooms, and algal blooms have their own effects on water. They create a foul taste and odor of drinking water. So even after the water has been treated and filtered, these algal blooms still affect the taste and quality of drinking water. And it also, if the algal blooms are bad enough, a lot of times lakes will close uh, and prevent water activities like swimming, boating, fishing, and activities like that. Recently, uh, where I'm from, Ohio, we had a lake shut down because of really bad algal blooms, and it took them years to clean it up. Um, Excess nitrogen or nitrates in water also cause a lot of issues in water and drinking water, and they can cause what's called blue baby syndrome, which is can be fatal to infants. So that is like a lot of problems that the fertilizers can cause when they get into drinking water or into watersheds. Pesticides is another thing that pollutes um, water from agricultural runoff, and these pesticides are used to kill a lot of like pests in agricultural fields. Insects, fungi, and weeds are all targeted by different types of pesticides. So you have like insecticides, fungicides, and herbicides. And these chemicals are just blanket sprayed onto plants, and they can spread into the environment through several different ways. Direct applications, so basically when they apply it to the plants, it gets into the environment that way. Agricultural runoff, so when it gets into the soil, the soil gets carried away. That is a way that it gets into the environment. And when they spray this stuff, obviously, if there's like any form of like wind or it gets caught in the air, it can drift through the air for long distances away from fields. And these pesticides poison water throughout watersheds, and that destroys like the natural habitats of animals. It contaminates our food. Um, so, and it obviously kills off fish and wildlife when it gets into water and into different environments. It poisons a lot of fish and wildlife populations. Manure comes from a variety of sources throughout the agricultural field. Um, Manure is both used as a fertilizer, and it's created through meat production or animal product production. Obviously, when you feed animals, uh, it has to come out the other end, and that obviously gets put onto the ground where not all of it gets used, or it gets carried away, or it can even seep into the ground and into groundwater supplies. Um, so this, when it works its way into waterways and other um, points in the environment, it causes issues like the spread of disease and bacteria, especially if it seeps into groundwater supplies where we drink out of, or cattle drink out of, or uh, pigs drink out of. pretty much anything drinks out of the groundwater can get a disease or bacteria. It causes eutrophication or nutrient pollution in the water, which causes a lot of the same problems as fertilizers. Then you have organics inside the manure that also can poison the water. So you can get a lot of nasty little microorganisms in your water that can poison people and animals, cause a lot of disease. And then you, like I said, you get groundwater pollution when manure seeps into the soil and down into groundwater supplies. Crop residues. If you've ever seen a field where they leave behind plants or like the stalks of plants afterwards, that's kind of what crop residues are. And they promote plant growth for the next planting season. And they sort of act as like a natural compost when they decompose. And they also act as like a weed cover when used in this way as well. But they add nutrients to the soil, and these residues like obviously leach nutrients, and then those nutrients can get carried away by runoff. And they cause a lot of the same issues as fertilizers within watersheds. So then the next one would be poor irrigation. So there's a slew of irrigation tactics that lead to the poisoning of groundwater and other sort of like pollutants from the agricultural runoff. And basically, there's like in arid climates where nutrients don't go very deep into the soil; they kind of just sit on the top. When when irrigation water evaporates, it leaves behind salt deposits on the tops of the soil, and these salt deposits can become very concentrated over time, and then they can also get swept away by runoff, erosion, things like that. Because erosion doesn't necessarily just mean water; it can mean carried by air, carried away by wildlife, things like that. So erosion is just like the loss of soil, and so that can mean air, water, etc. Anything carrying soil. And these salts contain a lot of metals, nutrients, things like that, and they can get removed by irrigation. Over irrigation also increases erosion. So when you're adding too much water to your plants, that carries a lot of soil off, and that carries the same nutrients and other harmful materials into watersheds. And these salts, like I said, can contain metals, especially toxic heavy metals. One example I read was selenium, which works its way into watersheds a lot through agricultural runoff, and it poisons the water, and it can often hurt wildlife reproduction in like waterfowl, like ducks and geese, and it really hurts their reproduction. So the last cause of like agricultural runoff is overgrazing. So in America, especially, we have large feedlots of animals that can be grain fed, or they'll have large fields that they go through um, where they're grass fed. And these cattle will go through these grasslands, especially like in the middle United States over the Great Plains. They'll go through these large fields of grass, and they will graze it all down to the dirt. They will eat it all. And that exposes a lot of soil to the air and water, which increases erosion. And when this erosion it occurs, it allows for the encroachment of harmful plants. Also, when this erosion occurs, it moves into wetlands, drying wetlands and destroying the plant life there and the habitats for wildlife. And this destruction of wetlands really kind of builds onto the issue of runoff pollution, because wetlands serve a key role in the environment as natural filters for pollution and nutrients, and really protect waterways from those elements. Um, so when you destroy the wetlands, you lose that natural filter, allowing these nutrients just to go straight into watersheds and waterways. Um, so we really should like look at maybe solving the overgrazing issue, especially uh, as a starting point to the issue. Yes, runoff is the key issue, but these wetlands really protect waterways from that runoff. And the plants serve as natural filters, filtering that water before it can even get to the river. So the main source of farmland water pollution, when I say source, it's really the main uh, vehicle that they use uh, to get these nutrients to waterways. And the main way that the water gets polluted from farmland is through erosion and sedimentation. So when soil is eroded from the fields, it works its way into waterways, either through like direct deposit of water, or it lands in there from the air. And what it does is it creates a murky water, and this murky water blocks life to aquatic plants. And when you block light to aquatic plants, you lose oxygen production when you lose the plants. And also the nutrients can then cause those algal blooms, which also suck up oxygen from the water. So not only are you not producing oxygen, you're losing oxygen to the water, which causes a lot of death of aquatic wildlife. Uh, this soil also clogs fish's gills, and those are needed to absorb what little oxygen is left in the water. And then they can smother fish eggs as well. So when fish lay clutches of eggs, this soil will cover those, and then those eggs are no longer viable eggs, because when the fish hatch, they obviously can have nowhere to go, and they are smothered by the dirt. They cannot get any oxygen. They can't get any food, and it kills them. So we have this effect where we are preventing oxygen production in water, um, soaking oxygen out of the water with algal blooms, and we're just destroying natural habitats with this runoff. And we kind of chose this as like a topic for covering as our case study and topic material, because we talked about biological oxygen demand for a good few weeks in class, and this sort of problem really links with the talks that we had about, if you're taking the oxygen out of the water, like your O2 levels go down, your demand goes up, and then it creates a relationship, like an inverse relationship, where if your oxygen goes up, your demand goes up, your oxygen goes down. So we found this as a good link to that topic. And the source I used for this presentation came from the Environmental Protection Agency in a PDF they put out in 2005 that was most recently revised in 2005, called Protecting Water Quality from Agricultural Runoff. Thank you.